You wake up and do that thing you didn't plan to do. You open your banking app, not because you're bored, not because you're excited, just to check. You don't even sit up properly. One eye still half closed. Thumb already knows where to tap. You tell yourself it's just a quick look, just to make sure nothing weird happened overnight. You already kind of know what it's going to say. The number isn't shocking anymore. It doesn't hit you in the chest like it used to. It's familiar. A little disappointing, but familiar. Enough money to get through the week. Not enough to feel calm. Definitely not enough to feel ahead. You stare at it longer than you should. Not because you're doing math, but because you're waiting for a feeling that never comes. And then the thought shows up, quietly, automatically. I'm not irresponsible. I'm not reckless. I'm actually trying. You replay the evidence in your head. You don't live wildly. You don't ignore bills. You don't go on shopping sprees. You don't pretend money doesn't matter. You've skipped things you wanted. You've said no more than you've said yes. You've watched the videos. You've read the articles. You've made the lists. You've opened spreadsheets. You've told yourself, okay, next month I'll do better. So why does it still feel like nothing is building? If your net worth has been hovering under $50,000 for a long time, this probably isn't about motivation anymore. Motivation isn't the problem. You don't need another lecture about discipline or working harder or waking up earlier. You already did the responsible things. You pay your bills on time. You avoid obvious mistakes. You try to be thoughtful. In fact, compared to a lot of people around you, you're doing pretty well. And yet, you're stuck. And that's the part no one talks about. Because being stuck under $50,000 doesn't look like failure from the outside. It looks like adulthood. It looks like stability. It looks like having things mostly together. That's why it's so frustrating. What most people don't realize is that staying under $50,000 isn't usually caused by one big, dramatic financial mistake. It's almost never one bad decision that ruined everything. It's caused by a handful of small, normal choices that feel reasonable in the moment. Choices that don't look like mistakes at all. They look responsible. They look safe. They look like what you're supposed to do. And because they look right, they rarely get questioned. So let's talk about the real reasons this happens. Not to shame you, not to scare you, just to make the pattern visible. Because once you can see it clearly, it stops feeling personal. Most people misunderstand what net worth actually reflects. They think it's about income, or intelligence, or financial discipline. But net worth is mostly a reflection of behavior repeated over time. And behavior isn't driven by spreadsheets. It's driven by psychology, by stress, by fatigue, by comfort, by fear, by what feels safest when you're tired at the end of a long day. The first mistake that quietly keeps people stuck under $50,000 is relying on leftover money. On paper, this sounds responsible. You pay your bills. You cover necessities. You try not to overspend. And whatever's left at the end of the month, that's what you save. This is what most adults are taught. Handle your responsibilities first, then save if you can. The problem is that leftover money almost never exists consistently. Life expands to fill the space you give it. Groceries creep up just a little. A friend's wedding shows up. A birthday gift. A repair. We've had a hard week. Let's order something moment. None of it feels reckless. None of it feels wrong. And suddenly the month is over. There's no explosion. No big regret. Just that quiet realization that there isn't much left. Again, what makes this mistake sneaky is that it feels disciplined. You're not being careless. You're just trusting that things will work out. But money that isn't assigned a job tends to disappear. Not dramatically. Quietly. People who build net worth early don't save what's left. They decide what stays. They remove choice from the equation. They treat saving like rent, like electricity, like something that happens whether the month feels easy or not. Until that flips, net worth growth stays slow and fragile. The second mistake is confusing income stability with financial stability. This one hits a lot of working professionals. You have a steady paycheck. You know roughly what's coming in every month. You don't live in fear of missing rent tomorrow, so you feel stable. But income stability doesn't protect you from timing or expenses, or emotional decisions made under stress. You can make decent money and still feel like one bad month away from panic. One unexpected bill can undo months of progress. One stretch of bad timing can wipe out what you were building. And when that happens, it reinforces a quiet fear. No matter how much I make, it never feels like enough. That fear changes behavior. People hold too much cash in places that don't grow, or they avoid investing because they don't feel ready yet, or they make ultra-conservative choices that feel safe but stall progress. Under 50,000, many people are technically okay, but emotionally fragile, and that fragility slows everything down. The third mistake is delaying investing until you feel confident. This feels responsible. Investing sounds serious. Risky, like something you should only do once you fully understand it. So people wait. They read. They watch. They compare strategies. They tell themselves, I'll start when things feel clearer. But clarity rarely comes before action. It almost always comes after. Confidence isn't a prerequisite. It's a result. When you wait for confidence, you delay the one thing that builds it. And the longer you wait, the heavier the idea of starting becomes. Not because investing got harder, but because the story in your head got bigger. Under 50,000, time matters more than perfection. Consistency matters more than cleverness. And the people who stay stuck aren't careless. They're often too cautious. The fourth mistake is treating debt as a moral failure instead of a tool. Debt carries emotional weight. Even small balances can feel like proof that you messed up. So people under 50,000 often make debt elimination their entire identity. Every spare dollar goes toward erasing balances as fast as possible. That sounds responsible, and sometimes it is. But when all your energy goes into correcting the past, there's nothing left to build the future. Some people aggressively pay down low-interest debt while neglecting savings, investing, or skill growth. They feel productive because balances are shrinking, but their net worth barely moves. The problem isn't debt. It's fear-driven decision-making. When debt decisions come from anxiety instead of strategy, progress slows and one setback sends you right back to where you started. The fifth mistake is upgrading lifestyle before upgrading systems. This one is quiet. You get a raise, or your income becomes more predictable. So life gets a little nicer, not extravagant, just more comfortable. Better groceries, a better phone, a nicer place, more convenience, less friction. Nothing feels irresponsible. It feels earned, but the systems behind your money don't change. Your savings rate stays the same. Your investing habits don't improve. Your buffers don't grow. So life feels better, but your foundation stays thin. Comfort increases. Urgency fades. You're not stressed enough to change, but not secure enough to relax. This is one of the biggest reasons people plateau under 50,000 for years. Life feels fine but fragile, and fine is very sticky. The sixth mistake is avoiding uncomfortable money conversations with a partner, with family, or with yourself. You don't look too closely at numbers because they bring guilt or anxiety. You don't revisit old decisions because regret feels heavy. You don't ask certain questions because you're afraid of the answers. So things stay vague, and vagueness keeps anxiety alive. Money stress thrives in ambiguity. And when anxiety is high, people choose relief over progress. Sometimes a mistake isn't what you're doing. It's what you're avoiding. The seventh mistake is measuring progress by effort instead of trajectory. This one hurts the most because many people under 50,000 are trying hard. They're careful. They're thoughtful. They're responsible. But effort without direction doesn't compound. What matters isn't how tired you are at the end of the month. It's whether your decisions are creating momentum. If your net worth looks the same year after year, something structural needs to change. Not your discipline, not your character. The structure, that's the part most advice skips. Here's the turning point most people miss. Being under 50,000 isn't a personal failure. It's a signal. It's your finances telling you that money in your life is designed to sustain, not build. Sustaining feels safe. Building feels uncertain. So most systems default to sustaining. Once you see that, the shame softens. You stop asking, what's wrong with me? And start asking, what is my money doing when I'm not paying attention? That question changes everything. Because wealth doesn't come from intensity. It comes from alignment. When saving, spending, investing, and earning point in the same direction, progress speeds up without feeling harder. And you don't need extremes. You don't need to cut all joy. You don't need to optimize every dollar. You don't need perfect knowledge. You need quiet systems, automatic movement, gentle consistency. That's how people cross 50,000 without feeling like they became someone else. If you're under 50,000 right now, it doesn't mean you're behind. It means you're early in a phase that feels longer than it actually is. This phase is frustrating because effort doesn't show up immediately. The feedback loop is slow. You're planting things that haven't surfaced yet. But this is also the phase where small adjustments matter most. The goal isn't speed. It's stopping the leaks. And once those close, the math starts working for you. Not overnight, not magically, but quietly enough that one day, you open your app without bracing yourself, and the number doesn't just look bigger, it feels calmer. And that's usually how you know you're finally moving forward.